And I'm like, dude, you're not a king. You know what I'm
If
saying?
that if
So
that was the case, but if the parents were sitting there saying the child needs to be baptized, and I say, honey, how do you feel about the child being
he ain't say
baptized?
that though.
And you say,
Guarantee you do.
yes, it is. Yes, but we don't
Everything
know
about
if that's
how
how he said it.
everything about how he has told the story, everything about how he has told the story has
At
never
what part he
positioned her
said,
as his equal. It has always positioned her as his accomplice or co-pilot, never as his equal. He has never elevated her to that point at any point of how he was telling this story. So it makes me feel that had she said, "No, I don't agree. I'm not a religious person just like you aren't, but I don't see the harm in, letting him letting our child go to church with his grandparents and things like that." He does not seem at all, and this is just from his perspective. He's the only one who's been talking. He does not at all seem like he is open to all opposing points of view. It's his way or the highway.
but the deal is then what you need to do is then maybe if this is something that's so important to you, you take the highway. But what you don't do is do the whole manipulating behind his back and set up for somebody to go do something that you know one party of your marriage does not want. If you are
But it's
so
equal.
into look,
But it's
I
not
am going
equal,
to
Marlon.
go yes, because I would sit there and say, I am going to go to battle with you because this is important to my parents, which makes it important to me. If you don't think it's important, and I am going to go back and forth with you until we come to some kind of conclusion. If the conclusion comes that, hey, we need to separate, cool beans. What I'm not going to do to my partner is start this whole manipulation and
But how do
get
you not see? And I don't know how to convey this, and perhaps the ladies have a completely different view than I do. But he is doing to her the very thing that he is upset about her doing to him. He closed the door to anything other than what he wanted. And that was the end of discussion. And so she went around him and manipulated the situation to do what she wanted. They're literally doing the same thing to each other. It's
and I'm
just that it's manifesting in a way
and
that,
I'm
that comes out
to
this
a
way.
guy who I've been on here who said, do not play tit for tat. Now, if that person is manipulating, then why would you do the same thing and think,
I don't
okay,
understand.
you you've been a person who always say, do not do tit for tat because
Correct.
that does that
Escalation.
escalation
Yes.
thing because that escalates. So how is this any different? If you're if she is being manipulated by him, then why would you
Well,
fight that with manipulation?
how it differs is when I'm talking about how I would do something. First of all, my leadership style in my household is different than what I'm perceiving his to be. So that in and of itself shifts the dynamic. And I'm not saying I always get it right. My wife will tell you I don't always get it right. But I don't do that thing where it doesn't have to be my way. Now it'll end up being my way if you don't give me something, but it doesn't have to go my way. I don't think that everyone has to find a way to suit my perceived worldview. And this is not what I'm picking up from this story. From this story, he has his worldview. He has his view of his family. He has his view of what he wants for his son. But he has not truly engaged his spouse to make sure that they both feel the same way about that thing. Now, is she can agree when it's in the abstract, and that's a completely different thing before she ends up having to go and deal with her parents. Because in her heart of hearts, this really doesn't matter. So why upset these old people who just want to, introduce their grandson to eternal salvation so they can feel comfortable? It's just not that big a deal to her. But fighting him over it is a whole nother thing. And that's anyway. But I've talked enough. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Tracy.
I'm gonna hand it over to Tracy and Anna when she gets back. Go ahead, Tracy. And you're muted before you get started.
This mother-in-law is a trip and a half. She started it. I see where this is going, and he brought this on himself. Blah 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 blah. She bowed her knee to her mama. She couldn't tell her mama to stay out of the business. She couldn't tell her. She couldn't stand up to her own mother. I don't blame him. Now, sure, he went a little bit too far with the divorce because he has his hand in the cookie jar too. But essentially, the wife is straight up wrong for going behind the husband's back and a decision that both of them should have made about the child. They both agreed in the beginning not to have the child baptized. Then she goes behind his back because her mother is pressuring her. Girl, please grow up and tell your mama to sit down. That's pretty much all I have.
Um, okay, Anna is back. So go ahead,
Hmm. Well, the only thing I can clearly remember about this from last time is I didn't know what the whole preparing for baptism was in the classes. But honestly, I'm more aligned with. I think it was Theist with the overall. What does pouring some water over a child's head? Child won't remember it, and I don't know. I think he overreacted. The way he wrote that story was very alarming to me as well. I think the wife was caught not only between him but two parents who were just going. Well, actually, I can't say parents. I can only say from the mother because that's what I heard from the story. Why haven't you gotten him baptized yet? How in the world are you going to let my grandson walk through this life unsaved or whatever, and should she have grown up and said, honey, I have to tell you that my mom is on me a lot, and let's talk about this. No, she shouldn't have gone behind his back, but I can see it's a small thing.
This is not a small thing, though. This is not a small thing. Not a small thing at all. They both have control issues. Both of them.
Okay.
He wants to control the situation by saying no, 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 even though I still take his side because at least he was saying, hey, we agreed on this. And she just let her mother just come in and just willy nilly just say, no, it's going to be this way. And then says, yeah, let's not tell him. How was you going to keep that a secret? How did she think that was going to work? Just, okay, we're not going to say anything. Shh, don't tell anything. Not that I think children baptisms mean anything, but that's a whole different discussion for a whole different day. But, lady, I mean, I know what my response would have been. Like, Tracy's response would have been, that's a baby. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I think I agree with Tracy here. Um, and I have to admit my own bias. Um, because this is kind of, it's not a direct like match for me, but like I'm the one that if I believe something, I will stand on that to anyone, right? I'll be polite or I'll be diplomatic depending upon who I'm dealing with, especially if we're talking about parents and in-laws, but I will be very firm in what I stand on, right? Um,
Mhm.
but when I look back at it, thinking back to like my first marriage, where we were both very young, and I didn't realize it then, but later I come to realize that the compromised position that my then wife was in constantly, like I didn't even recognize it, right? She would agree with me because she loved me. She was married to me. She was raising a family with me. But that didn't mean that she wholeheartedly agreed with me. It just meant that she was siding with her husband.